Today, we're getting under the hood of fertility with Meaghan, who is the head of marketing at Mysteria, a reproductive health platform built to give women the answers the system never gave them. If you could share, what was your fertility journey like?
Oh, geez. How do you kind of sum that up in a nutshell, right? I mean, for me, I would say, so I went through the majority of my fertility journey at the height of COVID. So I would say that it was really, I actually think there were some obviously cons about that, but certainly some pros. And part of the pros being that I very much am someone who likes to compartmentalize and I need to have boundaries and draw lines. And actually going through it through the height of COVID meant no one knew. And I was able to really not let anybody on to what I was going through. And for me personally, that's how I preferred it in the moment. I would have had trouble had I needed to communicate to lots of people around me what I was going through and then have to answer the constant questions, which some people are better at that. Some people want to talk it through and quite honestly might have helped me actually navigate my journey more. But at the time, yeah, it meant that nobody had any sense of what was going on because I was just working from home and you weren't seeing anybody. Um, and so part of what also happened because we were at the height of COVID is I actually went through a good portion of the experience alone because my husband just wasn't allowed in the clinics. You weren't allowed to bring anybody with you. You weren't allowed to have anybody with you for any of the procedures, which previous to COVID, and now it's at least for the most part come back since the pandemic, is that you can have your partner there with you through the majority of the experience. And so, did a lot of that largely on my own, even though I have a partner that was part of it. So it was really, I think anybody that went through it at that time obviously had a similar experience in terms of isolation and kind of going through the majority of the journey alone. Um, but yeah, so back to my earlier point about there's definitely pros and cons. And I think it would have affected different types of people differently, but I actually think that a big part of needing to do that in an isolated way actually helped me kind of protect my mental health and not go too deep into the emotions of the whole process. I was able to keep it largely, you know, medical.
How did it make you feel?
Um, having to do it on my own, I don't think the word resentful is correct because I don't feel any resentment towards my partner, but more resentful to the system, I think at the time, where it was complete um almost not ignorance, but it was like, okay, well, this is happening to you. You're the one that has to go through the procedures, so it's fine. You can do this on your own. There was really, I think if you went through any sort of other medical issue at the time, even with hospitals being kind of locked down with how many visitors you could have, like you would have had a person with you for any sort of other medical procedure. And I think um, it was largely dismissive of a lot of the women's or females' experience going through the process where they were just forced to kind of do it alone and it was just accepted. So it really felt very dismissive of the whole experience, both how my husband felt, how I felt. Um, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who kind of went through it at that time and felt that way. Um, yeah, I think dismissed is probably the right word to use.
How did you cope emotionally, especially during the hardest moments?
Um, I don't know that I coped particularly well because for me it was very much just I spoke to it early, but the really compartmentalizing what was happening. I was treating it very like it was just any sort of medical procedure where, if you had, I had ankle surgery a couple of years ago, for example. So like when I went through my ankle surgery, I treated that very medical. There wasn't really a whole lot of like emotional aspect to that, right? Um, and so I honestly went through this journey in a lot of the same ways where I treated, okay, these are just procedures. I just have to go to doctors. I have to do tests. I was trying to separate it from the emotion of what would be the result of this journey, or the ideal result. I know it doesn't always work out for everybody, but um, I really was trying to take it one step at a time. And so what I was going through in the moment, I was disconnecting from where this would hopefully take me in a year from now. So I was really very much trying to just stay in the moment. And anything prior to when I did become pregnant was just like, okay, this is the procedure, this is a medical appointment, blood work, ultrasound, whatever. It was just like, this is medical. I was very much trying not to pull emotion into it.
How did infertility affect your relationship with your partner, friends, or family?
Um, well, quite honestly, because I didn't tell anybody what I was going through aside from my partner, it really didn't affect my relationship with friends or family in any way. Um, and because we were at the height of COVID and we weren't seeing anybody in person, there wasn't even anything I needed to dance around or felt like I was lying about, or so that was kind of the pro of that whole situation. Um, but in terms of the partner relationship, I think because he wasn't able to participate in much of it, it allowed me to better compartmentalize. And honestly, going through it, because I was treating it more as a medical procedure than anything, and trying to separate myself from the emotion of it, I don't think it affected us all that much, honestly. I think had he been able to be more participatory, maybe it would have led to more. But because I was able to compartmentalize in the way I was able to, I think that protected our relationship as well. Where I know a lot of other relationships suffer greatly through the process. It's not easy. But and not to advocate necessarily for compartmentalization, because mental health is so important, and getting help and talking about it is so helpful for a lot of people. But I do think that is a big part of what kind of shielded our relationship from that whole experience.
Did you ever feel isolated?
Um, I mean, again, back to the COVID thing. I think if COVID wasn't happening, yes, probably, right? But I think because this was just the life we were all living in 2020 and 2021, that um I didn't connect it to the fertility experience. I connected it to what was going on in the world, and everybody was having that same experience, right? Um, and then my husband was trying to be as involved as he could, right? So um, there's part of the IVF process where you do progesterone in oil shots. So it's something that you need to put into um your butt once a day, and it's a very big needle, and it's hard to do on your own. A lot of people struggle to do it themselves, and so um that particular part of the process, like, that was his job, like, make sure all the medicine is together and proper, and okay, fill the vial. And then it was his job to make sure that um he was there to do the injections and all that. And we honestly kind of made it a bit of um a routine, right? Like, it was very much something we did every night at 10 o'clock at night, and made some jokes about it. And he was there to support through it. But, and a lot of partners get involved that way too, where it kind of becomes their job to, okay, you make sure all the medication's stored properly, and how it gets mixed, and, when we need to do injections, and how, and what that looks like. So that's a great way that partners can get involved. And my husband did get involved in that way. And it honestly became kind of like a joke, something we kind of bonded over, which worked out well.
How did you find or build support?
Um, I mean, I was largely using online resources where I could be anonymous. And not that I was intentionally trying to be that way. It just was a lot easier for me, for people not to know, what I was going through, or having to answer kind of constant questions about it. So I was able to join, an online Facebook group, and Reddit, and these types of places where other people are talking about the experience they're going through. So that largely did become kind of my support network, was what I could find online. It's a big part of why we are doing what we're doing at Mystoria actually is because we're trying to help people kind of get those resources and early and have a reliable place to go because that was the key. That was kind of one of those gaps, right? Going through it was like, okay, well, you know, Jeanette in Montreal might say this was her experience, but that's very personal to her, right? So it's, yes, I want to hear from others, but also you don't know what's medically backed and not, and what's personal to your experience. And um, so, yeah, largely it was that. I mean, the clinic I went to was for the most part supportive throughout the journey, but clinics are difficult to get support from when you're not like actually in the clinic at an appointment. So you for sure have to find kind of other areas of support in between those appointments.
What paths or treatments did you explore, and how did you decide on each step, like IUI, IVF, acupuncture, etc.?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, we went a number of years without using any sort of birth control, but I was traveling a lot for work. And so we kind of just didn't really chalk anything up to there being a problem. We thought, like, oh, I just, you're traveling during the windows where it's, not going to work. And, um, the medical community advisor, like, advice is to wait 12 months of trying, and then you go in for support unless you hit the age of 35. And it's different in regions, but here, that's kind of the guideline. And so, we went many years without thinking, oh, we had a problem. We thought, oh, it's just, timing's not working. And so when we did finally decide to go to a doctor, and we underwent some of the tests, like some of the early kind of fertility tests that they put you through, it was identified that essentially IVF was going to be our only um, treatment path available to us anyway. So that was the only thing that was going to work. Um, which in retrospect, I am actually happy about that because I didn't have to do a stepped approach where, yes, people are doing timed intercourse at home and then you're doing IUI for some clinics will put you through five, six, seven of those, right? And then you do IVF and you don't really know, in a lot of cases, you're not getting the root causes identified. So something could be wrong, right? Something could need to be addressed and requiring that, okay, your only option might be IVF, but you're still kind of put through this other part of the process, right? Um, and so in retrospect, like I'm very happy that our diagnosis was the diagnosis we got because it meant, okay, this is your step, these are your options, kind of off you go. So um, there wasn't a whole lot of like, try this and then try that. No, it was very much almost like expedited. Um, for us, the question really came around, okay, so I was 35 when we started going through the process. And where I live in our province, so there is some government funding. It's recently become even more even stronger and supportive. But at the time, there was some government funding, but you would be put on a list to kind of receive treatment under that umbrella, right? And the delay at that time, I think, was about a 2-year wait time to use that funding. So our decision became, okay, do we wait 2 years and get some support from the government, or can we financially support ourselves through this now? And especially being 35, like that magic number everybody talks about, right? We had to make or not we had to, but we made the decision, okay, we'll find a way to make this work financially by our own means. Um, because you never know. Some people are, they decided to do it by their own means, but they remain on the list. And a couple of years later, people have come up for the funding, right? Because they've been in the process so long that at least they're able to get some of that funding later on. And as I said, it's better today, but at the time. Um, so that for us was the bigger decision really was, I mean, A, do we do it? Right? Because going into the whole process, because we actually didn't think there was a problem, um, was to, okay, come to terms with, yes, there is a problem. And we need to make a decision. Do we go forward with IVF or do we become okay with um, being child free, not by choice? Um, and so we thought, again, trying to really compartmentalize it as being very medical. I thought, and my husband too, okay, well, let's just do the procedures. It's just medical stuff. and lots of money, of course, but and let's see. And so that's kind of what, we made that decision for us. Yeah.
So, what do you wish someone had told you early on?
Oh, many things. I wish somebody had told me to ask more questions, and to advocate for myself because I really did go through the whole process and kind of, you know, I know the term is Jesus take the wheel, but in this terms, it was like doctor take the wheel, right? Clinic take the wheel. You just tell me what I should be doing. And there were many, individual situations that happened throughout my journey, especially my treatment with this particular clinic, that I wish I had asked more questions. I wish I had got clarification about things. There's a procedure I had that I didn't know what it was until I went home. So it ended up being uh, what the layman's term is a uterine scratch, and which is exactly what it sounds like. And I didn't know what it was until I got home. There was no like ask for consent. There was no explanation of what this was going to be or what this was going to do. It was just kind of the doctor flying through room to room to room. And because I wasn't asking questions, it was just, okay, like you do what you need to do. Um, and so it wasn't until I got home and I could Google it that I even found out what it was. Like I had to describe what I went through. And like that in particular that is something I have PTSD about the situation with. Um, and I wish I had felt more comfortable to ask more questions and had pushed for more information before consenting to certain things, because in a lot of cases, clinics are just giving you their opinions on things, or maybe not even providing the data behind why they're making certain recommendations. And yeah, I wish I had pushed on that a little bit more. Again, retrospect, but something other people should know.
How did you manage the stress and pressure while balancing work or daily life?
Um, well, what's interesting about my experience and the experience of so many that go through it. So your appointments, for example, are so early in the morning, right? So most people going through fertility treatments, they're in and out of their clinic before 8 a.m., 8:30 a.m. So a lot of people can just continue on if you have a 9 to 5 type job. Most can do their treatments and then, continue at work. And so again, because we were at home and everybody's locked down, well, nobody knew if I didn't get to my computer until 9:15, or because our clinic was also an hour from where I live. So there was also I'd leave at 5 o'clock in the morning, drive an hour, go to the clinic, be there for maybe an hour, drive back an hour. And I had a whole team working for me. So if I was going to be late to a meeting or something, like I could ask somebody to take the lead or take over, or, you know, that kind of thing. So it really goes back to the compartmentalization piece again, because it was part of my day that happened before my day started. And then, I'd have my whole work day and a lot of my meds, while I was going through the IVF cycles, well, all of that happened at night. So it was like, okay, I had my day, then we'd have dinner, and then I'd do all my medication. And um, another part of my experience, I'm a type 1 diabetic. And so when you're trying to go through this process and then through pregnancy as well, it's so important to like keep your blood sugars really, really tight. And so during the daytime, that almost became my obsession and my focus. So it was work and then maintaining blood sugars, which felt, the point was to help get pregnant, but it was very much about diabetes. So during the day, it was like, oh, my brain was switched, was focused on something else medically than the fertility journey. So again, it was like I became obsessive about it. I was checking my CGM every 10 minutes, but um it was like thinking about something different medically going on. And so it was a lot, but I actually think that was a bit of a savior too in all of this.
I'm curious, like, how did you navigate pregnancy announcements or baby showers from others?
Um, It actually was harder for me before we made the decision to go through fertility treatments. It was harder for me to hear people were having success, where when we were in the treatment cycle, it felt like, okay, now I'm actually doing something about this. So eventually it will work for me. Like, yes, in a lot of cases it doesn't, but my mental state at the time was, well, I'm doing something about it now. This is going to work. I'm doing this step and then this step and then this step. So I was actually okay about it when I was going through the fertility journey itself. Because I saw the light at the end of the tunnel, I felt like, yep, this is all going to work out eventually. So good for everybody else. Um, but quite honestly, it's still hard now, right? And you hear a lot about this from people who've gone through fertility struggles, whether they're successful or not, is that these things continue to be a bit triggering, right? And it brings up old feelings and um, yeah, so I don't know that that will really ever go away, but um, yeah,
So, what did infertility teach you about yourself?
that I can do hard things. I think in other parts of my life, I 100% feel that too. I'm obviously a very, very ambitious person in my professional life as well, but yeah, it is not easy. Like it is a difficult process to go through, and it messes with your body because of all the hormones. And a lot of people end up having to, remortgage your house, or you put off doing things that you want to do for years, right? Like, okay, we won't take this vacation until we're pregnant. And then so you might push things off for years and years and years while you go through this, right? It's very much um a feeling of limbo, right? When you're going through it. Um so yeah, I think in a nutshell, it's I can do hard things.
How has your story evolved and what does healing look like for you now?
Um well, I would say that a big part of, what I'm trying to do now, especially with my story, right? It's really why I joined Jess, our founder, on this journey, is trying to make things better for the people who come behind us. Because there are all of these what I wish I would have knowns. Um, and we can use our lived experience, and we can use our areas of expertise and professional um, backgrounds to help others. And, I've spent 15 plus years in tech. And so now it feels like, hey, let's do something that feels like it's really helping people. And we can share our stories. Like would I have told my story 5, 6 years ago? No, I wouldn't have, nobody knew, right? It wasn't until I joined Jess and we said like, hey, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to help others that come behind us. And now there's literally nothing that is TMI. We will tell anybody anything, but it's why people understand what to push back on and what questions they do have answers to now that they wouldn't have had before. And go and advocate for yourself, right? Like if people don't hear stories of others and learnings and successes and failures, then they won't know to do it themselves. A part of my healing was definitely sharing my story. So, um, the first couple of years after we exited the fertility journey, I really didn't talk about it very much. It was known once we were pregnant and told our families and friends about it that, we actually had gone through this significant journey. But other than that, we didn't really talk about it. And so now, certainly, since joining my story 2 years ago and telling my story all the time, is definitely healing, and healing also to hear stories of other people and how we're motivating others to tell their story. Oftentimes we're on phone calls and everybody's crying. This happens multiple times a week, but it's healing. It's healing to hear how others have navigated, how others have felt, how maybe we've been able to help them on their journey, how even talking about it helps them. So most definitely it's part of that healing for sure.
What are your top three pieces of advice for other women going through this experience?
Um, My top three tips, I think one for sure is to seek out the education. So seek out the education on what's coming, what the journey will look like, questions you should be asking care providers or other people in your network. Um, Two, don't be afraid to push back, ask questions, advocate for yourself. It is a very expensive journey. So even if you think of it only in that way, you're paying a lot of money. So you can ask questions. You're allowed to make sure that you're getting the care that's appropriate for you. Um, and three, just understand that you're not alone in it. If you want to talk about it, great. If you don't, just understand you're not alone. There's a lot of people who know how it feels to be going through what you're going through. So seek out others if you'd like to, but certainly don't go through this feeling isolated. Um, you're not, it's a traumatic experience, it's an emotional experience, but there are others here to help you, whether that be in the care team or just people in a community or, um, tools like what we do, that type of thing. So, certainly don't feel like you need to go through it alone.